This is the Gen Y Leaders Podcast. Welcome to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast, where we guide millennials to become the next generation of business leaders and entrepreneurs. I'm your host, Eric Huey, and multiple times a month, we bring you interviews from high-performing millennials who are challenging perceptions and changing expectations of our generation. Our mission is to help you overcome fear, take action, and go confidently in the direction of your dreams. It's time to start preparing now, mainly because 10,000 baby boomers are retiring every day, which will create a vacuum of career opportunities that you've been waiting for. Will you be ready? Cody, what's up? Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me so much. I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah, me too. If you could just start off by telling viewers who you are and what you do.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Cody Isabel. I'm a neuroscience guy, neuroscientist, and I very much believe it's one of the easiest sciences to apply to your life. And so applying the scientific method with neuroscience is really, really what we focus on with the people we work with.
Very cool. And I look forward to getting to that and talking a little more, but talk a little bit about your why. You have an interesting story as far as having concussions in the past and kind of the path that you've taken in life to get where you are now.
Kind of like you alluded to, I played some college basketball. I studied neuroscience in college. And so my trainers were like, I got my fourth one. After that, the NCAA stops covering you for insurance. And they're like, dude, you study this stuff. You know you need to stop. And I was like, yes, I know. I realize that.
Yeah.
Before I got to that point, though, even in like the 2-ish, 3 range, I had a harder time getting back onto the court just simply because of my head, my mind, and not physical, but mental too. Like the psychological piece of getting back out there after you've been hit.
Mm-hmm.
And something that I learned was how much control and power we have over our own minds and what we perceive and the things like that. And I saw a very large weakness and gap in athletes and people and humans in general. And I was very much passionate about helping athletes with that problem. Made a little bit of a pivot into business because the medical field wasn't exactly what I was looking for.
Yeah.
It wasn't getting me the impact I was looking for, but into the real world I came, and helping people with this statement: whatever my mind can conceive and believe, I can achieve. That's simply the why statement I tell myself every day. And dissecting that apart, whatever my mind, my psychology, and my nervous system can conceive and believe, I can achieve. So what does it mean to conceive of something? What does it mean to believe? And what does it mean to achieve? Mm-hmm. Answering and helping people answer those questions younger and younger and younger is 100% my mission, to help them understand how much power is up here between their ears. That is what gets me why I do what I do.
I think we align in a lot of areas, one being in this topic of leadership and, developing the next generation of leaders. One of the foundational pillars I based my podcast on was this idea of our generation and the, next generations coming in behind baby boomers and Gen X, because, especially baby boomers, is this term called the silver tsunami. And what it refers to is 10,000 baby boomers retiring every single day from here through the mid 2030s. So the next 10 to 15 years are going to be really opportunistic for young professionals to take the manager positions and above, and get uncomfortable if they want it. But even further to that point, I think a lot of people who aren't necessarily looking to get in leadership or look at themselves as leaders are going to be forced to be, because there's going to be so many positions available. So
Yes.
You're kind of on the front lines of this as far as like working with corporations and businesses, as far as developing leaders and, all facets. So can you confirm my thoughts on that? Am I crazy, or what are you seeing on your end?
Yeah, not crazy at all. And very much almost very personal, not personal, but relating to right now our current situation with some of this COVID stuff. is some of those older, that silver tsunami is having some of a harder time with some of this digital stuff. And so the opportunities for these younger people to take some of those management positions is more and more and more rapidly approaching, especially some of that stuff, like the technological and shifting to those types of things. So I could not agree more, like 100%. Spots are opening, and it worries me slightly because I don't want us to repeat the past. Because there's a lot of frustrations we deal with from the grassroots, so younger people, and the managers themselves, as far as training and their management development goes.
Yeah, let's get into that a little bit. I mean, as far as the succession plan, I guess, is how I'd blanket the term. You know, what you just alluded to, as far as from what I see in the employers that I've been with, and the businesses that I've just been in for networking events, or colleagues, peers in Kansas City, it doesn't really seem like there's some active succession planning going on. Like, it almost feels like older generation is going to hand us the keys and say good luck. There's obviously like more that goes into that, as far as why do we need to keep this profit margin? Why have we not pursued this service line or this industry? Just that institutional knowledge that really needs to get passed down. What would you say corporations can do to better that?
I think the thing I think here is currently we do not train. We did research with I think it was Harvard, Sandler and Harvard pair up a ton for stuff, and only 6% of managers were qualified for what they're doing.
Wow.
And by their own admission. This is not me saying it to them. This is their own admission.
Wow.
I got completely, like you said, handing the keys to the car, that type of thing. That's training for management right now. It's so sad to see this.
Wow.
And the young people are being affected by this, like the downstream effects. And so what tends to happen is the managers, today's managers, were the top performers when they were younger. And so what happened is, oh, here you go. Hey, Eric, how you doing? You're a top performer. I don't suppose you'd want to become a manager, have more responsibility, compete against your team if you're on the sales team, manage your own stuff, everyone else's stuff, and then be compensated based on your team's performance, even though you're competing against them. Oh, and we're going to pay you less too. Is that cool? And we're not going to train you. We're not going to train you. There's no point. That's the current state. And it really, I work with so many young people that are frustrated with their managers. Young people meaning 20s all the way to 35-ish, 30s, and they're so frustrated, and how do they treat me like this? How do they say these things? How do they, like, well, think about it. It's psychology. This is what happened to them. This was their transition. They're not trained to communicate with you or help you move along. They're just thrown into the position. And so empathizing right there, being able to empathize is a huge piece of, yes, there's like, it's kind of a bad adverse effect for you right now as a young person. But you got to remember, they were in your shoes and they are doing the best they can as well. And they're not being invested in.
Yeah.
And it blows my mind that the people who are managing some of these are your most qualified people typically. And they're invested in the least. Like I've sat across from a business owner and I'm saying, you mean to tell, they're like, oh, we don't need to invest in the best. We don't need to, they're good.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. So they've peaked. They can't get it. And they're like, what? And I'm like, so your best guys or girls probably have your largest accounts and your most significant ones. Yeah, 100%. They manage those. Yes, that's true. And the owner will say that to me. And then I say, so probably also the most of your revenue is generated from those accounts, typically 70-ish% from your top accounts, 70% of your revenue comes from those. And they're like, yeah, that's true for us too. I was like, so the people who are managing the most important accounts and who control the most amount of revenue coming into your business, you want to train less.
Right.
Am I the only one confused by this?
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of things that happen within that management, and that succession planning comes from very clear processes and systems in place. And it's not overly complicated. That's the hardest part is, well, it worked for me is not a very good succession plan. It's just not.
Yeah.
Why did it work for you? Is there science behind why it worked for you? Is there a reason why? How do I structure what you just did? Like, You sit down with a manager and they just crush something, and the super sales manager's like, I'm going to close this deal. Let's go. Let's go. I'm back in the and it's the salesperson or the new person or is sitting next to him like, well, how did you do that? Well, just 20 years of experience, kid.
You
like,
can't
what?
you can't do that. Talk to me in 20 years, kid.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things, right? And I think it starts as a leadership. I work a ton with leaders and helping them establish clearly. A lot of them don't know what they want to be when they grow up. And if the owner and runner of that business doesn't have a clear vision for himself or herself, how on earth could they possibly communicate their vision for the business down the chain of command? And how could they possibly create a machine that works for them? Because let's just be honest. Like, you come from operational side or you come from the sales side, the finance side. There's a couple different tracks to get to like a CEO leadership thing.
Yeah.
But almost like if it's a sales one and you're the owner and you control 70% of the sales, that's not a business. That's a sales job.
Yeah.
You have a sales job. And venture capital, private equity, all these people are not looking for sales jobs to buy. They're looking for machines that have automated processes that can churn the same thing in and out over and over. So how do you establish those things?
Yeah, that's a great point. Great perspective. Like, the more times I talk to you, things get brought up that we just align further and further. And one of those, to your point, is having that kind of internal culture and rallying cry for employees to get behind. Because it's like, if that's not there, then of course they're not going to be motivated to work, and vice versa as far as management knowing them.
And a big piece of that is not understanding the personal visions of people.
Yeah.
Like, it's one thing to say, hey, here's our corporate goals, but something that I often see not happen at all. Management, leadership, leaders don't tie it for their managers. Managers don't tie them for their people, but their corporate goals tied to their personal goals.
Right.
And it's as simple as like, Eric, would you be more motivated by Mr. Leader, my bottom line revenue I'm trying to increase, or taking your family on a vacation?
Right. Yeah. Great question.
Which one motivates you more?
Vacation for sure. Yeah.
I mean, this is not rocket science, but we're not tying these goals together. Mm-hmm. We're not helping people emotionally connect to what we want them to achieve for us as leaders a lot of the time. Yeah. And it is really, really hard to get motivated for someone else's goals. But if a true leader can dive into you and your personal and empathize, now you're motivated. And that's a culture that is you can't penetrate that. I don't care who you are.
Yeah, without a doubt. So we've talked a little bit about the corporate perspective now, and kind of like to switch gears, if you will, to kind of the individual perspective on the flip side of this coin. So, what strategies or tactics can we as young leaders use to, really get noticed by upper management to convince them that we're ready to take these leadership roles, or maybe not even that we're ready, that we want to be ready and want to be prepared?
Yeah. The first one, slightly, maybe even not controversial, but forget goals.
Yeah.
Don't like goals. What? Forget them. Set them and forget them. Why? Process, systems, and growth. Those are the three things you should focus on. It's not that you need to sit here and focus. It's great to have if you think of like a process goal versus a normal goal, a simple goal would be losing weight or writing a book. That's a goal. Congratulations. You could say it 1,000 times and nothing will happen.
Yeah.
Forget it. The process goal is I'm going to write 500 words a day. Mm-hmm. Focus on that, not telling your boss, I'm going to be the number one sales guy. I'm going to be the number one ops person. Customer service, my customer satisfaction rate is going to be the highest. Yeah. Congratulations, man. If we were athletes, you'd be getting a butt pat, right? However, walking and saying, here is my process goals. I'm going to make this many outbound calls before lunch. I'm going to have this many network goals. I'm going to have this many networking events a day. We call it a cookbook. Yeah. Cookbooking your success, chopping that goal down, and then having a system. It's one thing to say, I'm going to drive up my productivity. That's a goal, but a system that helps you limit distractions that are coming into your world, that system helps you increase your productivity. So again, focusing on the system as opposed to the goal helps you more. And then growth. We get so caught up. That's the last one. We get so caught up in these goals, like, I'm going to get there. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. That we forget. Well, if I wake up tomorrow and I ask myself, am I better? Did I do better yesterday than today? simply ask that. It's daily growth. It
Yeah.
was, I heard this from Darren Bailey, but he was talking about who made the Virgin Mobile, or not Virgin Mobile, Virgin Airlines, Sir
Uh,
Richard Branson.
yes.
Richard Branson talks about, I didn't expect to build this giant conglomerate.
Yeah.
I just tried to be better than I was yesterday every single day.
Mhm.
And focusing on your future self.
Yeah.
That would be a huge one. I've got tons of these, so please just cut me off
Yeah, that might be a
because
good or stopping point. You had the three bullets, so I think those are really key. And I think it's interesting because it's like you said, it's so much more creating habits and behavior on a daily basis rather than always trying to look to the goal on the horizon. That you'll be happy when this happens, or be happy if this happens. It's like I feel like just like happiness, success isn't so much as a destination as it is just a mindset and a way of life that you live with.
and that's the last piece too. There's four, right? Progress, and that's the neurological part of it. People forget a ton, but progress and rewarding progress and punishing. People are very, very nervous about this. Like in psychology, it's punishment versus reward. Which one's stronger?
Yeah.
And don't kill me here, but I promise you that human beings want to go away from pain more than they want to go towards pleasure. And they did a study with teachers. Literally, they told one group your bonus is based on the performance. They told both groups your bonus is based on the performance of your kids. One group, they said, if they perform, you get your goal, you get your bonus. The other one said, if they don't perform, we're going to take your bonus from you. Which group do you think performed better?
Wow.
The one that they punished, the one they
Yeah.
took it away from. Not
Right.
just a little bit, 3 times better.
Wow.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And our brains evolutionarily are primed for that. Like we've got to understand that when we were young, when we were back in the day in the caves, going down one path meant you're going to be eaten by a saber-toothed tiger or not. And the other meant, oh, there's some nice berries.
Mm-hmm.
If there are berries on the road with the tiger, I promise you the pleasure of those berries would have never, ever, ever gotten them to go down that path, because it's pleasure now or death now. Which
Right.
would you pick?
Yeah.
So
Great.
pain and
Yeah.
punishment and rewarding progress. So don't very much like if you, I call it like a 5-to-1, 4-to-1. So if you do something like those process goals, you do make those 5 calls, and you have one day that you miss your calls, make 100% sure the next 4 or 5 days you hit it. But don't be so butthurt or upset that I missed a goal one day. Just focus on the next 4.
All great points. So I think one thing that we as young leaders and aspiring leaders run into is exactly that. Maybe the stereotype that we're too young or inexperienced to take a leadership position. What would you say are some ways that we can combat those or overcome those?
Yeah, I'm a big, as you know, internal talk, internal focus, Gestalt psychology, young psychology, those types of things help you name your subconscious or that voice in your head you hear. So Tim Roberts helped me get mine. I named mine Jerry. And the reason I say that is because Jerry gets in the way a lot.
Yeah.
In these situations. So this inexperienced, entitled, young, most of the time, probably 86 or 7% of the time, that is Jerry just chatting away in your head, just chatting, going along. When in reality, if you're like, Jerry, shut up, man.
Yeah.
And you walk into a conversation, these inexperienced, entitled, you're too young. What could you teach me? How is someone young going to do anything like that? That's all your own internal story more times than not.
Yeah.
I mean, and just understanding that fact in general, that when you go up to ask a more experienced person, what's going on? And can you help me? They will.
Yeah.
And it's mind blowing to watch that internal story stop so many people from taking on anything.
Yeah.
And then the generalist specialist. I don't know if you've ever heard of that story or not, but it blows my mind to help reinforce that Jerry is just really, really screwing the pooch on this one. Is the generalist specialist. I think it was MIT, the most advanced mechanical astrophysicist on Earth.
Mhm.
We're trying to figure out a mechanical mechanism for a satellite they're trying to put in space. Couldn't figure it out. They just could not figure out what was going on. And so these specialists put it out to the public with $1 million prize. 8 hours later, it was solved. 8 hours later, it was solved by the generalist, not the specialist.
Right.
While I completely agree, the older people in our businesses, our lives and stuff, have got the specialist knowledge as far as time on Earth. I get it. You beat me there. You've got more time on Earth.
Yeah.
Simply being younger puts you in a generalist seat, and you're asking questions. There's not a box. I don't have a box. I don't know what it is because I'm a generalist.
Yeah.
Specialists are inside of a specialized box that they work within.
Yeah.
I simply am looking from outside the bottle saying, do you see that? What's going on there?
Mm-hmm.
And if you have that frame, a lot of the times, if your leader or your manager is an effective listener, these younger people can give really, really good generalist ideas that are then can be specialized.
To wrap this up here, getting towards the end, couple key questions I ask. One being, what people, books, or resources have made an impact on your life or your business? Maybe 2-3 books if I know you're a reader.
Oh my goodness. I've got my Mount Rushmore. You're probably not surprised. My neuroscience brethren, my top 3 are Just Listen by Dr. Mark Goldstein.
Okay.
Absolutely will change your life. Starting to tear back. That book for managers right now, older managers, would be perfect. Just sitting back and listening and empathizing with each other. It's huge. Organize Tomorrow Today. We talk about systems and processes. Dr. Jason Selk absolutely blows it out of the water on this one. He's worked with thousands of sports teams like the Cardinals, and it's just value, chapter by chapter. I mean, just read that straight through, apply it to your life, and I promise you'll wake up next year and be like, whoa, what just happened? And then Sleep Smarter. This is another one I see in younger people so often. It hurts me as a neuroscientist to watch people just trash their brains by not sleeping enough. They want to, I'm going to grind, I'm going to beat my chest, I'm here till 2 a.m. Oh, no, come on. Gary is screwing you over here again. Gary's trying to tell you that you need to do those things. I'm telling you, he really comes in really abrupt ways. He's trying to tell you need to do that because you're comparing yourself to everyone around you. Comparison kills joy.
Yep.
Comparison is the root of all joy. I love that quote. Yep. And without sleep, there's a lot of false narratives around there. Fine tuning and figuring that out. I'm not saying you need to sleep 8 hours, but a quick tip I will tell you from that Sleep Smarter by Dr. Sean Stevenson is the hours from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. That window, double your amount of sleep. If you sleep for 1 hour, count it as 2.
Huh.
I mean, it's massive. And then the last one is not a book, but the Blinkist app. I don't know if you've heard of that or not.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, I haven't checked it out, but I've heard good things.
I blow through the process I kind of work on is I kind of blow through stuff. And as I'm listening, oh, this is awesome. I then will go order that book. Yeah. And so it just gives you a couple of blanks of these books, some spark notes essentially. And then if there's one I really like, I go find that book and I read through the whole thing. So.
Very cool. Well, thanks for all the recommendations. I'll be sure to link to those in the show notes for all of our viewers and listeners out there. But Cody, last question: if someone has something they're struggling with in the workplace and wants your advice, whether it be professional or personal, where can people best get a hold of you at?
Yeah, the best place for me is LinkedIn. I'm on there all the time. DM me. My phone number's on there. Happy to give that to people, or email me. Either one of those 3 things: LinkedIn, phone, or email.
Okay, great. Yeah, and I'll link to those in the notes as well. Cody, thanks so much for all the value provided today. A lot of key insights. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me on.
That wraps up today's episode. We hope to have brought you some valuable key takeaways. Most importantly, whatever you learned, take action on it. Apply it to your life. Apply it to your career. Motivation and inspiration only come as a result of taking that first step. So if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe on whichever platform you found the show. You can also follow us on all the major social media platforms. or contact us directly at genwhyleaders@gmail.com. That's GENWHY leaders@gmail.com. Until next time, I'm Eric Huey, and thanks for listening to the Gen Y Leaders Podcast.